Australian Open chief breaks silence after Coco Gauff camera complaints. Australian Open organizers have released a statement amid mounting concerns about cameras and behind-the-scenes player areas on the grounds, while tournament director Craig Tiley also addressed the issue. However, the WTA Tour is publicly supporting its athletes and has reinforced their concerns. Coco Gauff was filmed smashing her racket in a private area after her quarterfinal defeat on Tuesday, sparking a debate about the omnipresent cameras. Gauff suggested that discussions could take place to provide players with more privacy. Iga Swiatek and Jessica Pegula also expressed their concerns, with world number 2 Swiatek claiming that they felt like animals in a zoo. Novak Djokovic later shared his perspective, saying he was against the surveillance. But the 24-time Grand Slam champion doesn't believe things will change, given the growing emphasis on creating content. That transition of really getting used to having an eye that you don't hear and may sometimes forget about always on you is frightening, he added. Additional cameras began appearing in player corridors and walkways in 2019, providing rights holders with greater access to share what was happening behind the scenes, whether it's players arriving on site for the day, preparing to walk on the court, or completing a post-match cooldown. Not everyone was pleased with the Big Brother-style monitoring, and Gauff's racket destruction has reignited the controversy. Both Gauff and Pegula indicated that the locker room was the sole location where players could enjoy genuine privacy. Tennis Australia has now issued a response, expressing their desire to balance player privacy protection with enhanced fan engagement, striking the right balance between showcasing the personalities and skills of the players while ensuring their comfort and privacy is a priority for the AO. Tennis Australia said in a statement. Tournament director Craig Tiley echoed that sentiment during an appearance on Tennis Channel. It's a good question, and the first thing that we do is listen to the players. We want to really understand their needs and wants, so that's the first question we'll ask. We've heard you, and whatever adjustments we need to make, we will make, the Aussie Open boss explained. It's a fine line between the player promotion and the event promotion, and where the cameras are. We do have many areas behind the scenes. For example, we have a coach's room where players and coaches can interact, has no cameras. The locker room, the training rooms, the recovery rooms, the beauty room, the sleep room. There's many places we have on site that are player only. No cameras. In the general corridors going in and out of the areas, walking on the court, of course, there are cameras. But we'll continue to review it and make sure the players are comfortable with it. But at the same time, we also want to bring the fan and the players closer, because we believe that, as tennis players, we can really help lift up their value and also the love the fans have for them. But it's a fine line that we've got to keep walking. However, the WTA Tour has taken a very different approach, defending players and backing up their concerns about the cameras. In a statement, the Women's Tennis Tour said, "The WTA stands with our players and takes their concerns about privacy and cameras at the Australian Open seriously. Players deserve spaces away from competition where they can recover in private." The Australian Open, year after year, brings the world's best tennis players to Melbourne Park. Grand Slam drama, breathtaking rallies, and unforgettable triumphs are par for the course. But in 2026, the tournament made headlines not just for the tennis, but for a moment that ignited a wider conversation about privacy, broadcasting culture, and the humanity of athletes. It all started when Coco Gauff, the 21-year-old American star and world number 3, was eliminated in the quarterfinals by Alina Svitolina. Frustrated by an unusually tough performance, Gauff sought a quiet space in the venue to release her emotions and smash a racket. She believed she had found a spot out of the spotlight, but that assumption turned out to be wrong. The footage, captured by broadcast cameras, quickly found its way onto television and social media, making Gauff's emotional outburst visible to millions. For many fans it was just another viral clip, but for Gauff it crossed a line. She openly criticized the broadcast decision to air what she considered a private, emotionally vulnerable moment. Camera with flash, not everything needs to be shown. At her post-match press conference, Gauff confronted the media culture head-on. She said she had intentionally moved to a place where I thought there were no cameras because she didn't want that raw, emotional side of her to be broadcast. The only real private space she felt existed at the tournament, she remarked, was the locker room. I tried to go somewhere where there was no camera, she told reporters. Citing moments, the same thing happened to Arina Sabalenka at the US Open. I feel like they don't need to broadcast. In other words, Gauff wasn't denying her frustration. She was questioning the boundaries between professional access and human dignity. She explained that releasing her emotions in private was a healthier way to cope with disappointment than directing them at her team. Speaking head in silhouette #a rally of voices, players say enough. What could have been a short-lived media blip quickly grew into a broader debate, not just about one player's feelings, but about the culture of surveillance in sport today. One of the most poignant echoes came from Iga Swiatek, then world number 2. She publicly supported Gauff's concern, asking whether tennis players were treated like animals in a zoo, observed relentlessly, even off-court. Her analogy captured how many players felt about the omnipresence of cameras in areas traditionally thought of as private. Jessica Pegula, another top American player, also spoke out, noting that players are under scrutiny all day long, except perhaps in the locker room or bathroom, making Gauff's frustration understandable. Even Novak Djokovic, one of the most successful and experienced players in history, expressed empathy. He highlighted that while the culture of content and live footage is unlikely to diminish, the lack of truly private spaces where players can process emotions or decompress is disappointing. He jokingly remarked he was surprised that cameras weren't installed even in the showers, underscoring athletes' sense of being constantly watched. Microphone #the Australian Open chief breaks silence. As player voices gained attention and public debate grew, the Australian Open's tournament director stepped forward to address the issue. Craig Tiley, a longtime figure in tennis and the chief executive of Tennis Australia, acknowledged the concerns and described the situation as a delicate balancing act. He recognized that while fans and broadcasters value transparency and close access to players, there's also a need to respect athletes' privacy and emotional well-being. Tiley's comments underline a central tension in modern sport: how to maintain fan engagement, media interest, and commercial partnerships without invading the personal boundaries of competitors. He did not dismiss the critiques but positioned them within the complexities of running a global sporting event in an age of digital